Yesterday, we spoke about God, how God exists, and we know that God, the relationship between us and God is parent and child. So today we're going to study more deeply about that relationship between God and human beings, relationship between God and the created world, relationship between human beings and the created world. So the relationship between God and human beings, the first point, we can describe that relationship as a relationship between mind and body. With our human beings, we have a mind that is visible and a body that is not visible. And we can say that the body is, in fact, the second mind that resembles the original mind. But the body is not the mind. So God is invisible. We are God's sons and daughters. We are like the temple of God. We can say that we are the second God from the viewpoint that we are the substantialization of God. But human beings are not God himself. So even though we can say that human beings are like the second God, so in order for us to become the second God or second gods, we have to be able to become people that resemble God. We have to be able to. We need to. We have a mind that deals with people in a different way. This person I like, that person I don't like. We have, for that reason, we have struggle and conflict between people. But the problem is related to how do we need to relate with other people. So if we saw human beings as we saw God, that's what we need to do. And also we need to be able to listen to people's words as if they're God's words to me. We have to see people as divine, as beings of divine value, and treat them with the same respect that we give to God. So why human beings have divine value as sacred? Why should we see that people are sacred and valuable? Because they are the children of God, and we treat people as precious because they are the children of God. So there are various different shapes and forms of people, but regardless of any of that, each person is a son or daughter of God, child of God. So the reason why we have problems in the world and why people may behave in the wrong way is not because of God's nature, but because of the fall. So if we respect God, we need to respect human beings. God is the central point of all created value. Therefore, human beings created by God are also sacred. They have value. So first of all, we can say the relationship between God and human beings is like mind and body. Secondly, we can say that the relationship is like parent and son, or father and son, yeah. Father explained that the core axis of the universe, principle of the universe, is father-son relationship. So all beings need to have parents. And all parents need to have children in order to have the qualification of parents, to be parents. The parent's position is a precious position, but parents don't become parents simply by saying, I'm a parent. They have to have children. Therefore, human beings, the most precious position that human beings can have is the position of parent. So our greatest hope is to become true parents. So a male is born as a son, a daughter is born as a daughter. If sons and daughters are born, that means that the parents have love. Then, when those children grow up and attend their parents as parents, that's the point that parents truly qualify as parents and can have the name as being parents. When a parent raises their child and they're small, they want to raise their sons to be a good son, raise their daughters to be a good daughter. The parents think about that as they're raising their children. But then being a good son and daughter is not a matter of external form or the external qualifications that we deal with in the fallen world. But the question is, what is the center of their heart? So when a son is a filial son and a daughter is a filial daughter toward their parent. And then when they become one through love with their parents, and as that heart grows up and grows up, that's the process that parents are doing to educate their children. So if parents do not carry out education well within their family, it can become a problem for society, for schools. So when a child is born, the child is meant to learn from the parent how to live, how to behave, how to interact. If we meet a wonderful person, we can often say, wow, that person was raised really well. We don't evaluate people just based on, and this isn't the result of simply external factors. So we want to raise our children a son to be a good husband, our daughters to be good wives. If we focus on things like we want to send them to an important university or a good university so that they are educated well. So how we educate we want to raise children to but today's education system is sort of focused on raising people to live in a higher dimension of society. So when we raise that child to become a husband, needs to be a good husband. Raise the daughter becomes a wife, needs to become a good wife. What is a good husband and a good wife? It's when they live for the sake. Husband lives for the wife lives for the husband. With that heart, when they live for the sake of the other, their partner. So a man who has that mind and that woman who has that mind, if they have such mind, wherever they go, they can live a good life. So become a good husband, become a good wife, give birth to good children. What kind of parent will they want to become? A good parent, good father, a good son, a good mother. Eventually to become, when we express this in the principle, we say a true father or a true mother. What kind of person is a true parent, a true father, a true mother? In the fallen world, if we take God out of the equation, we cannot use the expression cham to mean true. There's no true in the fallen world without God. To become a true person, we need to become someone who can love any person, any group of people, any nation, any world. Eventually, that we can love God truly. That's a true person. We have to become fathers. So Father taught us the 3-subject education: become a true parent, become a true teacher, a true master. When we educate people to become that, of that quality, that's a true teacher. What is the qualification of a true master, a true owner? Is it money? When a person is the owner of love eternally, that is the qualification of a true owner. When God was growing, what kind of God did God want to become? God wanted to become a God of true love. So within this entire world, the most precious, most sacred, most holy thing is love. So God, we say is the God of love. Of course, there's love in the fallen world. But the love in the fallen world is the love that is derived from the love of the servant, the archangel. If this world was a world that comes from the true love of God, what a wonderful world it would be. So, as True Father educated us to become true fathers and become true mothers. And when we bring those two together, that's what we mean by true parents. But when in true parents, who is the center? The Father is the center. So the way that the true father goes, true mother needs to follow. True father doesn't follow the way that the true mother goes. So God is the original substance of the principle, has Songsang and Gyeongsang. God has mind and body. So within God, should God's body follow God's mind, or should God's mind follow God's body? We can't divide them within God, they're the one, but there is a relationship centering on the direction established by the mind. God's body is expressed and enacted, and that's true love. So all beings in the phenomenal world are based on this nature of God and this structure of God. And we human beings are the same. True parents, you have true father, true mother, but you need to remember that the true father is the subject, the center. If we want to go forward to the position of true parents, we must have children. There is no such thing as a person becoming a parent without children. A person cannot have the name of parent without having children. Only when there are children there that a person becomes a parent. So what is the first thing that a child learns once they are born from the parents? The first thing they learn is the world of Shimjong, and the second one is true love. Oh, my parents sacrificed for me, invest so much for me. When the child understands this point, then the child sees the character of the parents, the lifestyle of the parents, comes to respect the parents. And then, through the seed of love was put into my mother's womb from my father, and that when their love came together, that's where I began. The child realizes this. When even though the child is not born, when the father thinks about, that seed has gone into the mother's womb and the baby is conceived, we don't know whether that son will be born, that child will be born as a son or a daughter, but at that point, the man thinks, now I'm a father. And the mother thinks, now I'm a mother. And from that point, the husband moves from the position of husband to the position of father. And the wife moves from the position of wife to the position of mother. So father and mother, we don't go to the position of parent directly. We move from the position of husband and wife to the position of father and mother. And the center of this is the world of Shimjeong and true love. There's that order, and that's the connection through which new life comes into being, and you cannot divide that relationship eternally. It's an eternal reality that's formed. So what kind of family, when all these come together? That's a true family. Why do we use the word true family? Because in the fallen world, there are many families. But what kind of families are they? But up until this point, everybody in the fallen world, we couldn't use the words true or false. There never existed that position that God desired, where human beings had risen to the position of true parents. Therefore, within the providence of restoration, God works to bring the Messiah who becomes the true parent. And that Messiah must come as a man. Why? Because the man is the one who carries the seed. Because of that seed, then it's possible to have a family, and that seed can be multiplied into a society, a nation, and world. Why? Because that is God's ideal of creation. But the problem is that Satan accomplished that by causing Adam and Eve to fall. And that means that there was no foundation in the fallen world to multiply the true seed. So there was no true family. True family is the foundation to multiply the true seed. So after 4,000 years, God worked to bring the Messiah, Jesus Christ. Why is Jesus Christ important? We cannot exchange Jesus for even the 4,000 years of history. Because Jesus was the new starting point for a new history. Because he came with the seed of true love. When you plant the seed of true love, it can be multiplied. That was the original ideal of God. So the seed of true love is invisible. Therefore, God needs to have his Son as his substantial form on. So God created Adam as his son, and Adam carries the true seed. The seed of true love comes from God, was meant to be planted in Eve through Adam's sexual organ. But when that was corrupted, everything was lost and all fell. So Father explained that within the Garden of Eden, even though Adam fell, if Adam had not fallen, it would have been relatively simple to establish the restoration conditions and continue. But so even if the field is lost, it's not too much of a problem. But when the seed was lost, everything was lost. It's a big problem. That's why it took 4,000 years, 4,000 biblical years, for God to work to bring the Messiah and once again establish the true seed on the earth. That's why God was suffering and God was aching, because he did not have any object to love. He was in the position to love, but cannot love. Desires to love, but there's no object to receive that love. That is the most painful 심정, the most painful heart. In the world of love, in this world, but the pain of love, the pain of 심정. Well, they need to receive the parents' love from within the womb. Even and when they're born in the womb and after birth, what's the difference? The difference is the dimension. Have a look. There are still parents there, whether the child is in the womb or child is already born. So when a baby is born, cannot express their experience in words, but when they're happy, they laugh. When they're sad, they cry. When they're hungry, they cry. The parents know this and hear the crying voice of the child. Oh, okay, we need to change the baby's diaper, or we need to feed the baby. The baby's hungry. So when missionaries went out in the old days, there was many mothers who went out with their baby. They left the baby at home and went out and were doing activities, but they knew that amongst all of the babies that were all put together in one room, and they hear the sound of a baby crying, the mother knows which baby is her baby. So there are some hospitals where babies are born. For 20 years, there are many, many babies born in this hospital. They did a television program where the doctor takes the mother and asks the... They did a film where the doctor brought in some mothers, and there was all the babies were together in the nursery, and got all the mothers to check which baby was their baby. Then they took the mothers out and they switched the positions of all of the babies, and they did an experiment to see which mother would know which one was their baby. And then when they asked the mothers how did they know which baby was their baby, how did I know? By feeling. When I went to that baby, then my feet stopped working. So just stopped there in front of my baby. That is the dimension of Shimjeong world. That's the dimension of true love. Even if you change the babies around. What are we saying here? The relationship between mother and child is related to there is a connection between Shimjeong and love. There's a connection there. But then again, some of the parents could find their child, and some parents could not find their child. So when God comes looking for his children, after 6,000 years, how does God find his children? Through Shimjeong, through true love. So is it knowledge? Is it power? Is it material possessions? Owns a good house? These are not important. But God's Shimjeong and God's love, they transcend time and space. And it's through that we open our hearts, then that's when we can hear God's word speaking to us through those capacities. So true Father came for the first time in 6,000 years and explained to us what is true Father, what is true Mother, what is true family. God is true God. Love is true love. Father put the word cham or true in front of everything. When the word of cham is put in front of something, it means that it's something that everybody can like and everybody can appreciate. And at the end of that process, what does it say that God said? He said it's good. It means that of good object for God to experience happiness through. someone who loves their own child more than anyone else. Who do they love the most? They love their own child. So even if, somebody else's child is more beautiful, more cute, you still love your own child, even if your child is perhaps a lot more ugly. Because that child was born from me. And it's the same with God. We're born on the earth when we feel our parents' heart, experience our parents' love, learn our parents' character, and grow up in that way. When we see how our parents live for me, sacrifice themselves, in the fallen world, if a child grows up centering on themselves and doesn't like what the parents are doing, then they'll either move out of the house or to other things. So in the Unification Church today, there's the connection of true love established by true parent. There's a connection of life within there. There's the Shimjong connection there. So we are connected as brothers and sisters because of that vertical connection with our Father. But if we have that love and we cannot love each other horizontally, that's not right. We inherit that connection, the Shimjong and love from our parent, and by learning that, from that point, that child realizes, oh, this is the way that my parents are. Comes to know the parents. When we say that the child knows the parent, we don't mean, oh, I can recognize the face, but no, rather I know the heart and the character within my father, within my mother. But the question is it, and the child knows whether the parent has raised that child with lies or with love, truthfully or with deception. So, what is the definition of filial piety? It is loving the parent and serving and attending the parent with that heart. In the Old Testament age was the period of the foundation of the Old Testament was the era of the law, and the New Testament was the era of faith. But the completed Testament is the era of attendance. Let's think about in the Vatican, they built the Basilica of St. Paul by St. Peter's Basilica by gathering a lot of money. Only through faith? Yeah.
So they sold indulgences so that the people could receive salvation through works. But after Luther's Reformation said that only through faith. And so when we are in the attending, however, in the New Testament age, there's both the works and the faith. So that is in attendance, and so that we have we have a heart of filial piety and loyalty and fidelity, and so then this now has this child now has the qualification as child. Then at that point, he now has that the child has that qualification, and so for the first time, then the parents. Until then, they are parents in name only, but now they are able to go into the position of parents. So this is a Sabbath for the parents. So I can trust my parents, I can trust my child. I can leave everything up to him. And so once the child has the qualification as child and settles in the position of child, and the position of child is established, then the parents are able to have Sabbath. And so without children, parents cannot be parents. Even if they have children, a parent is parent in name only until that and unless that child comes to have the qualification of a child. In the world today, they say that if the children are good, then say, "Oh, this." But if the child is not good and well, it's painful, and so then for the parents, and they say, "I wish I didn't have any child. I wish I'd never given birth to them," and because without children, who are qualified as children, cannot go into the position of parents. And so, unqualified child makes the parent wish that they had no children at all. So, this content, if you look at the next, when we say that a human being becomes perfect, it means that the God is able to be in the position of Sabbath. When Adam is completed and becomes the son of God and daughter of God, then he receives the character of God, and then God becomes his center, and he is the invisible Father, and so he receives the character and 심정 of God. Then God is able to go into the position of the original parent and as the creator. But Adam fell, so then he became the object of sadness for God. So human beings were not able to, could not have become qualified as children, and so God's purpose of creation was not realized. His idea was not realized. So he became a sad parent, and then every time he looks at that child, he is painful. So then the relationship between God and human beings is one of father and children. Then he wants to be joyful. He wants to have joy and see good. So we want to have true love. So what kind of family is a true family? What do you think? Let's give one example. Who is the greatest person in America? The best, is it George Washington? So then he is. Let's assume that everyone in America respects him, and he's a wonderful person. Let's assume that, and let's say he is a wonderful president. But let's say that Americans like him, love him, but there are probably some people in America who don't like him in the course of history. I mean, so Americans may love him, but do the Russians or Soviet people like him? So Asian people, they don't know him, and Europeans. Some people know him, some people don't. Africans, the same thing. And Oceania, same. So then, is he really a great person? Well, he may be great in America, but he cannot be great outside. So does God like him? So God cannot like him unless everyone all human beings like him. And so then let's take an example of a Korean Admiral Lee Sun-shin. He is a true patriot, and there's no one in Korea who doesn't know him. And in Korea, he's a patriot, and he's a loyal patriot. But how about the Japanese? For in Japan, they don't see him that way. So because of him, they were not able to conquer Korea. And then Asian people, do they like him? They don't know him. Never heard of him. And Africans? Europeans? What about the people in the spirit world? They never heard of him. So then my father said, true love can love everyone. The individual, the family, the tribe, the society, the people, the nation, and the world. So in a spirit world, and even Satan. Then only then can God say this is good. So so the person that God loves is the true person, and who's the person that everyone can say is good? That is only the Messiah is that case. But then the Messiah came, and they don't. At first, they don't know him, and they say that he is bad, and they have opposition. But so that's why Jesus was killed on the cross. But even after he died, he because he had come as the Son of the true God, he through 2,000 years have many hundreds of thousands of people have followed him as the Messiah, and so now Father has come as the second coming, and the world has not believed him and could not attend him. Why? Because this is Satan's world. But so in the Satan's world, they dislike what God loves. So and what God hates the most, they love the most. So when we if you want to know what God loves, just to think what Satan hates the most. So what does Satan love the most? Illicit love. And hedonism, free sex, homosexuality. These are things that Satan loves, and so that is where Satan tries to find joy and tries to find happiness. But that's wrong. So this may be temporary happiness, but it will lead to destruction. And particularly God, he hates it the most, because it destroys. It is the cause for the destruction of God's ideal of creation, and Satan is using these things to try and make sure that God's ideal of creation cannot be accomplished. And so from one point, the purpose and the motivation and direction are opposite. So whether it's true love or evil love, they start at the same point but go in opposite directions. So one side is wrong. So that side has to be just cut off and just to have this. So here we have to just we cannot just judge that. We cannot just judge that. God doesn't just judge one side and throw out the one side and throw away one half. He says he goes to the center and the point and says this is the core, and then begins drawing concentric circles centering on that one point, and then that is how then he will make all 7.3 billion people in the world his sons and daughters. How? With words, his words. Once we come into the word, we can become that kind of person, and if we don't believe those words, then that person cannot come into that realm. That is the responsibility of human beings. So God teaches and teaches and teaches and endlessly teaches so that people can know. So then that is why the Messiah he's the true parent, and he is also the true teacher. So when the Messiah comes, he comes to teach. He is an educator. So we receive. If we had not received his words and we have not been educated, what would have happened to us? So how could we have gone to the Father if we had not been educated in this way? So that is why the Bible says the truth will set you free. So because the truth guides me. So we have received God's words. So through those words we go before God. Through whom? Through the true Father. Who is that true Father? His name is True Parent. And so then today we talked about the relationship between a parent and child. So not just saying that, not just a father and children, but he has given us this position, and this is infinite. So this is where everything started to go wrong. So it should have begun as a father and children, but Satan interfered there and caused the fall through love. What kind of love? Unprincipled love, false love, and then that as the all. So people don't know if that is a false or true or false. So that they think that what is false is true and what is true is false. If our nose were let's say that everyone had a horizontal nose, then if I had a vertical nose, people would say that I was wrong. In the fallen world, is centered on Satan. They see him as a strange person. His teaching is different. And so Jesus said this: believe in my words. Believe and follow my words. That is to believe in the one that God sent is the one. To believe in the one that the Father sent is to follow the Father. But they won't do that. And he also said, even if you can't believe my words, believe my actions. Judge yourselves whether these are actions by Satan or by God. And this is what he taught, but he still, they could not. But then he said again, what are you going to do? So he prayed. What did he say when he prayed? His prayer, he prayed to God, he prayed to Father, but they wouldn't believe. So if you were to pray in the name of if they had prayed in the name of Moses or Elijah, maybe they have believed, but he prayed in the name of the Father. And so why do we study the Bible? To get eternal life, but that Bible, but that is there to testify to me. If you want to have eternal life through the Bible, then get that eternal life through me. This is what he said. But people didn't believe him. And so that is why when Jesus lamented, and he lamented over Jerusalem, the city of Jerusalem. He said, Jerusalem, O Jerusalem, if you had known if you had known what was happening, this would not have happened here. But he didn't. But the people of that nation didn't understand him. All of creation knew, but not the people of Israel. So, Father, he understood this Shimjong of Jesus, and he needed to liberate not only Jesus, but the resentment of everyone. So how incredibly busy he was. So if he had told us about all of these things, we would have been so confused, we would not be able to do anything. So he just told us the core. This is what you need to know. This is what you need to understand. And here, find them in these, in my works, in my words. So, but at the center, there isn't there. So Father established that. So God and humanity are in a father-children relationship, father-son relationship, he said. So and then Jesus also taught that. And then one by one, he taught them, and so that they could understand, and so that I could have the Father's thoughts and Father's thinking and Father's actions, and so that I could resemble him a little by little, more and more each day. And so that is why Father said to do hundok life. So because the words in hundok are the record of his victories over Satan's. And so if we are able to do hundok every day, then we can experience God's heart, God's shimjong, so that we can be resurrected and we can have energy. Without the words, we cannot have that energy. Try it every day. Read Father's words, and you will experience God's shimjong. So you'll feel God's love, and then from there you will be resurrected. So then, how we need to live for righteousness, how we need to live in order to get rid of unrighteousness. We'll understand this. So now he is not on this earth, but he has given us his words. So for eternity, we are descended from one generation to another. We must become the substantial beings of those words. That is the blessing and as a gift that he gave us before he left. So if he had gone without giving us the textbooks and teaching materials, what would have happened? If his words had been lost, what would have happened? What would we have done? Who would find it? So there would have been no way for us to understand the essence of his message, and even the horizontal aspects we could not have known him. but it is very precious that those words are remaining. But then the people say that they're going to fix it and change it and delete something and put in something of their own. There is no sin greater than this. This is like turning the heaven and earth upside down. But Father spoke for his entire life. But no one can touch those words. And it absolutely must not touch these words. He emphasized this again and again. So that is why the principle is important to us. The core is important. The core went wrong, and so it was divided in two, and so we have to go back to that point and start again. So that is why the Messiah comes to God sends the Messiah. The Messiah comes to that point, and we come here. So here we go back to the core, to the beginning, then to start a new beginning there. So God said, if you eat of the fruit, you will die. That is unprincipled love. And then, so in the end, we'll have to have love. Through love, we can accomplish God's ideal, but we have to go through that test at the risk of our lives, a test of love. So when we cross this line, we went to unprincipled love, and so then we have to come from there back across the line, and we have to do it by love. So not by money. So if there's no money, then people run away. Will never work. It never work with money, but has only with love. And so then today, through the One Center, we are learning about God's Shimjong, about His true love, and about His character, and His ideal of creation, and the individual that He had planned, that the family that He had planned, the society He had planned, the nation He had planned, the world He had planned, and the spirit world that He had planned. So where we go after earth, everything has order and law, and so we cannot break that. We cannot ignore that order. That is Satan. It looks the same externally. So Satan establishes the appearance of God's creation, but it is internally but it is upside down, the essence of. So now we have to bring that back. So the individual has to come back, the family has to come back, the parents and the children all have to come back. So then there has to be a model, and so the word "true," centering on God, is what everyone will like. Everyone likes, vertically and horizontally. Everyone and the entirety we have to become a person that everyone likes. That is the standard of true. But let's look at ourselves today. How many people like me? How many people do you think that would be? Mr. President? How many people like you, Mr. President? It's very serious. When we go to the spirit world, the first thing we encounter, the first judgment we encounter in the spirit world is the judgment by the saints. And they may say, "Oh God, this person's no good. You told him to live this way, but he lived that way. He didn't live according to your words." Well, then if you pass that test, then the next is Satan's test. Satan will say, "Well, he was good in this aspect, but he got angry this time and therefore, and so he doesn't pass. So God can't do anything." So Satan will say, "I have to take him. He cannot go to where you are, God." So Satan will take that person. In the judgment, God does not judge. We judge ourselves. I did wrong, and so that is why I fail. So Satan does not judge. I'm judging myself. But we didn't know that. Now Father has come and taught us that. We just have to live that way from now on. What about the past sins? We have to establish indemnity conditions and wipe everything away. You have a computer. and everything important is recorded on the computer, and if you can't go in there without a password, but the owner of that computer has the password, and he can go into that the computer, and he can erase everything. Isn't that right? You can erase everything on the computer. So all the, of course, everything we did wrong in the past is recorded, but we don't need to worry about that, because there was sin through 6,000 years. But this began with the ancestors of the human beings. So Father came, and he took pity on us, and he said, "Don't live that way. Let's go this way." So from that time, we can go the way that Father says. How are we going to erase what's on our hard drive, though? We have to establish conditions, indemnity, and then everything will be cleared out. God's love. But you can't just take your hard drive to God and say, "Please erase it." Satan will know that. He won't let that happen. So even if there will not be joy. So let's say that one day, the two people are fighting, and then they may be laughing at each other, but their hearts are wounded. They don't like to see each other. There's not joy there. So we must not become that kind of person. So the reason we do this kind of education is not so that we can memorize certain facts or logic, but we have to learn love. What kind of love? Become a person who resembles God, have God's thought, God's heart, and God's lifestyle, God's actions. That's the kind of person we must become. It's easy, isn't it? Is it easy? That's why the Word is important. We cannot see the Word. We cannot see God. But those words are being given to you through Rev.Yu's mouth. And these are not my thoughts, but God's thoughts. God's love. God's 심정. I may not be able to express them 100%, but I'm explaining to you the basics of it. So if I teach you, if I convey to you what the Father taught, then within that is God's love, His 심정, His will, the information about the world that He is trying to establish. So we need to listen to the Word carefully. So then, if we listen to that, but if you add something of your own to that, that's no longer God's. So let me give you an example. He's just adding one letter. It changes in Korean. 아버지가, the father goes into the room. For example, 아버지가 방에 is a room. 들어가신다. He goes in. So then, father is the subject of that sentence, and the verb is go in. But then let's just move that one letter. It means it means completely different. It means that just move one letter, and it says the father goes into the bag, not into the room, but into the bag. All the same letters are there, but one letter is one syllable is taken from one word and stuck to the front of the next word, so it's just moved a little bit to the right, and it becomes completely different. And so we must listen accurately to the word. And it is God is absolute, unique, eternal, and unchanging, and His word is also absolute, unique, eternal, and unchanging. So because it is unique, He is absolute. And because He is unchanging, He is eternal. If He changes, He is not eternal. And so from God, He is unseen. And so that was why Father came, and His words are God's words. So from now, please read the Cheonseongyong. Read it carefully. And then within those words, everything is contained. The problems are there, and the explanation of how those problems came about is there, and the solutions are also there, and the purpose for all this is there also. So there's nothing greater than that. So the meaning changes just by changing one letter. So we must. So please study it exactly as it is, and the more you read it, you'll understand its preciousness. Wow, how was it that Father was able to speak these words to us? And then for our entire lives, Father has right now they've published 615 volumes of Father's words, but they have stopped publishing his words. If they don't publish them, who's going to teach them to us? Some PhD? No. So unless it is Father, no one can reveal God's secrets to us. But He has given us all the basic principles, and then He said, "The rest is up to you." So then we just have to do it now, based on what He has given us. So should we work harder than our Father, or less than Him? We must work hard. So then, please read the Word. Sometimes I catch myself. Oh wow! Look, Father said this. He expressed it this way, just so that we could understand one thing. So he explained it one way, another way, given a different expression, and he would explain things from 360 degrees, so that we could understand one point, a single point. So then, if we just look at one, then we understand it? No. So when you go, let's say you're going up a mountain, there are paths that go up different places. So they're all going up, but then all going up the mountain, different paths going up the mountain. So, so people go up the top paths, and they see other people going up different paths. But if you reach the top, you are all united in oneness. And so, do you want to fight then on the way up? So the religion, the religions are climbing up that mountain, but the final religion that remains is Christianity, and then that is because that is the ultimate religion. Why? Because it refers to God as Father. So what Jesus said is true, that Father and Son, but He is Father. Taught us that Father is not just a conceptual Father; He is my Father. How is it? So if you were to stick yourself with a needle, just like you would say, "Ouch!" So we need to be able to feel God to that extent. It has to be that real to us. That is how then the world of Shimjong, we can communicate in the world of Shimjong. Otherwise, we can't, because we cannot see Him, we cannot feel Him. Look at the way that we breathe. Unless we breathe, we die. But then, do you think about breathing? We just breathe without thinking about it. And when we think about it, of course, we are breathing. We see that we are breathing. But there's no one who actually has to concentrate or focus on breathing. And our heart, the heartbeat, if that stops, we die. But we don't hear it. If we were hearing our heart beating all the time, we wouldn't be able to live. We couldn't stand it. But if it would be too loud. But if the sound goes, if it becomes quiet, then that means that person is dying. But we don't actually hear it day. So if we were to hear the heartbeat all the time, we wouldn't be able to live it. We wouldn't be able to live. God made it that way. Also, human beings, we have we have a left and right on our body, and the heart is on which side? When God put our heart into our body, He said, "Where shall I put it? Shall I put it on the right, the left, above or below? Where shall I put it?" So, have you thought about that? So He thought about that, and you see, I'll put it here. All right, put it in the chest cavity, but then where shall it be? So then, right or left? Where shall I be? Father, God is very accurate. So which side? Where did he put it? On the left. Why? Why? Do you know why that is? Father explained it this way. The human beings use the right hand mostly in their lives. They hit things and they use their right hand a lot. So if their heart were on the right, then they would be it would have a lot of a shock. So that's why to protect it, God put it on the left. It's easier to understand that, because the heart would be subject to a lot of shocks if it were on the right-hand side. And that's why he said, so Father said. So Father has thought about these kinds of things a great deal. He taught us everything. So then we have to understand that this is precious.
So let's move ahead quickly. So Adam and Eve are created as God's children. So true love comes through a direct, the shortest direct line. True love. So because the direct line is the straightest and the quickest. How about God? The universe is incredibly huge. In the solar system, you have only a few planets. How many planets? So how many stars are there in the entire Milky Way galaxy? Several billion. 100 billion stars. And not all those stars are not all put together, but within in the invisible world, we can't measure the distance between suns by kilometers or anything like that. We measure it by light years. So light travels around at the speed of light. Light travels around the Earth 7 times within a second. So at that speed, when light travels for a year, that's what we call 1 light year. That's the distance that it's referring to. So let's say between some suns there is 10,000 light years. There are 100,000 light years. So of course, in the universe, it's massive. It's enormous. And then between galaxies, we have thousands and thousands of light years, millions, hundreds and millions of light years. That's the universe. So why would God have created the universe so big? Why make it small? Because God is unlimited. Human being's original nature is unlimited. The physical body has a limitation, but for desire there is no limit. It's an unlimited quality. How big is the carriage of our mind? What about a desire? You can never measure the full extent of it. God's mind is even bigger than the human mind. So, for the sake of his sons and daughters. So God, the universe is so incredibly enormous. If you use a physical body, you can't explore it all. It's impossible. From our planet Earth to go, to the to Jupiter takes about 5 years. So something that was anything that's sent from Earth takes 5 years just to arrive there. That's how big it is, even though the speed is extremely fast. And this is, We know this in the world today because it's been actually done. So, of course, as science develops in the future, we'll understand even more clearly. But in the spirit world, there are no secrets in the spirit world. That's why in the world today we have the internet and all the secrets are being revealed. This is reflection of the spirit world, where there are no secrets. So if human beings don't live as human beings should, in the future it will become a big, big problem. This kind of time will come. Father explained to us. Within our brain is the most incredible computer. Even our heart. We can't construct these things simply from our own whim. So there's a computer called the Alpha, and playing a competition between human beings and the computer. And the computer won. Using computers and robots in the future, 5 years in the future, we can see a situation where robots will do activities in our house, in replacing the activities of people, the work of people. So if a person is serving as work, then they need to be paid, but a robot doesn't need to be paid. So if robots begin and technology begin to replace human beings, then what will happen with people? So, and people will have nothing to do. So what kind of world will it become in the future? Father already explained to us that in the future it will become a hobby world where people are pursuing their interests. So with the development of technology, there's a lot of problems in the world today because of, in the economic world, some people have a lot of things and other people don't have a lot of things. But how can we make it so that all of these blessings are shared by human beings? So at the moment we have an economy that is driven by corporations. It's through corporations that the economy runs, not through individual people. So from the information age, we're moving to the age of robots. So the problem is, from this point forward, the real issue is human beings. As science develops, and then the brain within human beings becomes more important as technology evolves. So that even airplanes, for example, can fly because of being automatically controlled. But if this technology is used in a bad way, then it can become a very fearful world, a terrible world. So in the future, the question is human beings. What kind of human beings do we become? So as science develops, we can create an incredible environment, a wonderful world. But if we use it in the wrong way, it can create a lot of problems, create a terrible world. So Father in the old days, in Japan, in Happy World, Father educated them about technology and electronics. In those days, there wasn't many televisions. Even in Korea, we didn't have televisions. Father explained. And Father explained that the era of technology that we have today, already those many years ago, Father explained that we would be in the era that we live today. For example, we're able to observe things that are at a distance. For example, even if we live in the city, we can see what's going on in the countryside. If we own a house there, we can even keep an eye on that house using technology. So we've come, through science, we've come to the era where we can transcend time and space. The world of the mind is the problem. It's a serious problem. How do we educate people's minds, the world of the mind? We have to become, how can we train people to become true people, real people? So true love travels through a direct line. And what would God have? God is the master of the universe. How will God manage and supervise the entire universe? What would he use, do you think? So God uses the most quickest instrument to manage the entire universe. Within a second, going from one side of the universe to the other, what could it be? Today we use electronic waves. They're extremely fast. They can go 300,000 kilometers per second. So 300,000 kilometers in a second. Even with something that going that fast, can you manage and supervise the entire universe? No. It's not enough. So how will God manage and supervise the entire universe? It's through true love. Because true love, as soon as the thought is there, it goes from one place to another. It's instantaneous. The world of true love. That's the spirit world. So the entire incredibly enormous universe will be managed by God through true love. So even somebody who lived, many hundreds of thousands of years ago can be together with me now. If we talk about this, it's kind of mysterious and amazing, isn't it? But True Father knew this all very clearly and understood it very clearly. Father understood all this content extremely clearly, but as human beings, we weren't able to really understand it. So Father would repeat and repeat and repeat, sometimes talking for up to 10 hours at a time. If we'd been able to understand what Father was saying and implement it right then, how wonderful that would have been. But even the problem is that, fathers didn't have hands and feet to use. Even though he taught us, we didn't understand. We weren't able to implement what he taught us. We need to understand it must have been very frustrating for Father. When you think about things that Hyungjanim is now leading us to do and in guiding us to do you think they will just happen automatically? No, they won't. Who has to accomplish those things? That's us. We here have to do it. The things that we have learnt and the foundation we learnt from Father, using that wisdom, we have to move ahead and create the reality. So where's the true family now? It's up there at the top of the mountain, at the very pinnacle of the mountain. What about Satan. What does God need to do? It's a serious situation. Need to protect. Would Satan protect them? No, we have to protect them. With a prayerful heart. When we pray, the spirit world to protect. Heavenly Father to protect. Can we just protect them using weapons? Satan has even more weapons. We're coming to a time that's even more important than the time in which we lived. So the way we think, we can't just keep our thinking at our own standard. We have to rise to the sphere and the standard that God thinks about things, how Father thinks about things. How do I see this? If I have a problem, I shouldn't think about how can I resolve this problem. I have to think, when Father looked at this problem, how did Father think about it? How would Father solve it? How would God solve this problem? When we put our focus on that point and invest our heart and give our Cheong-song, then we can find the solutions to those problems. We can't do it with our own thinking. Because there's the borderline within our own heart of God and Satan. So we have to go with God's thinking. So true love works through a direct line. You understand that point, right? So why do we refer to Adam as God's son? Because he's a direct line from God. What about Eve? Eve is God's daughter and at the same time is the wife of Adam. So both Adam and Eve grow to completion. And where will God put his focus? If both of them grow together towards completion, where does God put his focus? Does he put it on Eve or did he put it on Adam? He puts it on Adam. Of course, within Eve's mind, God is also present there. So the mind is the same. Right? Adam's mind and Eve's mind are essentially the same thing. They come from God. So their minds are actually connected. They're interconnected. They're one. But the mind is one. But they have two different bodies. So how do those two bodies become one? That is marriage. Through marriage, then the two bodies become one. So the marriage of Adam is the marriage of the body. And whose body? It's Adam's body. Already the minds are one, but the bodies need to become one. And that's why that happens through the sexual organs. That's why the sexual organs are important. So on the marriage night, on the wedding night of the marriage, who is making love there? It's God's marriage night. So how would God come into that experience and have it? Does he come through Eve or come through Adam? He comes into Adam's body, and then Adam unites with Eve. So vertically, God and Adam. God is the subject, Adam is the object. And horizontally, Adam is the subject and Eve is the object. From Adam's viewpoint, who is my wife? When Adam is one with God and God manifests through Adam, then whose wife is Eve? From one viewpoint, she is God's wife. Not just Adam's wife, she is also God's wife. So, but that doesn't mean that Eve can take Adam's place. Adam is the center. Do you understand? That's the principle. So Adam is God's son, and at the same time is God's body. Eve is God's daughter, and at the same time is Adam's wife. From this viewpoint, we need to understand we're in a very serious situation. God is very serious, and Father in the spirit world is very serious. How serious? Do you feel how serious and intensely focused they are? if that order has been broken, then God has nowhere to be. The people who understand the will have to stand correctly. So the marriage of Adam and Eve is the marriage of God. And that's where God manifests in actual substantial form. But because so up until now, God was unable to use a physical form and experience substantial love through that physical form until the appearance of the true parent. And through the appearance of the true parent, then that could be accomplished and established and settled. So, not only does God's ideal manifest, but it is settled down. It's settled. How about mother? Mother says she's going a principled way, but if from father's viewpoint or God's viewpoint she is not, then how do they deal with that? Father established mother and brought her along so that she could accomplish the will. So God will, what will happen then? So God, even Adam and Eve, God will eventually bless Adam and Eve, and they will come back to their original position, but they will not be the true parent. They will not be the true parents, and Adam will not be the true parent. In the same way, mother needs to repent and reverse and come back to her original position. But she cannot fulfill that original role. So Jesus came as the King of Kings, but Father is the one who came and raised Jesus to the position of King of Kings. That's why Father instructed that there should be held a coronation ceremony held in Israel during the 2000s in order to establish that position of Jesus. Do you know why Father did that? The people of the world can't understand. Because Father reveals the problem and then needs to resolve them at the same time. And God needs to be liberated by the Son. So all beings come into being are born from parents. Therefore, the offspring is the complete substance of the parents. There are 4 basic principles. So children come from the love of the parents. That means father and mother together, and through their union of their love, I am conceived and born. Nobody participates in that place except for the father and the mother. But I was conceived in the very place where they completely come together. And that's why I'm there. I'm there when my parents' love come together. I'm the only being that is there at that time. That's why I'm my parents' son or daughter. That's where I was. That's where I was conceived. That's where I was born. I was there when my parents' love came together. In the second point, we're all born as something of the parents. So the seed is placed into a field in the same way the seed is put into the mother's womb and grows through the mother. But it cannot. But the field itself cannot bring forth the offspring. The seed is critical. We need the seed. Some people might say if there's no field, well, we don't need a seed either. So, but according to the principle, one is subject and one is object. But you can't change them. They're not the same thing. Even God can't change this because everything comes from the parents, the father's seed, and the mother's field together. So whose breast does the baby feed after the baby is born? The mother's breast. And when the baby sleeps within the mother's embrace. And when the baby goes out or the childs go out and come back, when they cry, do they cry for their father or their mother? They cry for their mother because of affection. And that's why mothers are very important. If the mother is a person of value, a great person, then the child can be a person of value, a great person. We have some second generations here, especially our women from the second generation. You need to listen carefully to this point. The person, the father who carries the seed is the center. If you deny that, then there's no way for the power of life to manifest. Because centering on Shimjong, and that seed needs to be a seed of Shimjong. And that's how we establish the standard of absolute sex. Centering on the seed of true love. Within parentism, there's no such thing as individualism. In the world today, we have democracy, but it has become individualism, but in fact selfish, where people live for themselves completely. Selfishism. But it's wrong. Parentism is what we need. When parents So when parentism comes into the world, instead of individualism or living for myself, when parentism comes in, then this world will change. Even democracy needs to disappear in the future. What kind of ism? Communism? What ism? Godism. Godism. What is Godism? It is the ism of true love. It's true love-ism. Shimjong. Shimjong wants to live for the sake of the other, to give and give and give, without end, like an ocean. The more. And then want to receive more and more. The world of Shimjong and the core of Shimjong. Love, that's where love is. Everything, you have roots, you have trunk, and then you have the branches. So the branches and the trees, there needs to be a root. And the root is within the soil, under the ground. But if the root dies, then the trunk will die and the branches will die. And, when we get into the middle of winter, then all the leaves fall from the branches. None of them are there. But we have evergreen trees. With evergreen trees, the leaves do not fall down. Why don't they fall? Because the roots are in the soil. They're still alive. So the root is God. The elements of the root is true love. So from that position today, we need to move towards the ideal. So parentism, there's no such thing as selfishism or individualism. When the object appears, I live for the sake of my object. I don't live for the sake of myself. Men live for the sake of the women. The man lives for the sake of the woman. The woman lives for the sake of the man. Who created it like this? This is God's design. That is God's nature. God's nature is to live for His object. This is God's nature, because of love. If there is no object, love cannot be experienced. It cannot be grown. It cannot be perfected. Therefore, God is the original substance of love, the original substance of Shimjong, lives for the sake of love, for the sake of his object, his partner. So where did God want to plant the seed of his true love? In human beings. Want to plant the seed of true love in human beings. And when it's planted in people, then it grows and bears fruit. In that position where we are today, we need to go back to what Father taught us. The root is Shimjong and true love. So when we exist, we have to exist for the sake of our object, for our partner. What is give and receive action? It's the foundation for all action, for all existence, action and multiplication. We give and receive. Give and receive. It's not receive and give. We don't say take first. It's give and take, or give and receive. And so when we give and give and give, there's no end. So, and when that love is received by the partner, then love and beauty develop continuously without end. So, today, if somebody has a lot of love, it doesn't matter whether they're pretty or ugly. Doesn't matter if their eyeball is falling out. But, a lot of people, try and make a lot of effort in order to make themselves look good. But if there's no love there, some people focus on money. I've got a lot of money. Look at my possessions. I'm really good looking. So when you go to meet the person that you're matched with, how are you going to go? How are you going to, put on some makeup and really make yourself look pretty? Maybe some eye makeup and lipstick, and then you're going to go and meet your the person that you're matched to. Then the other person will look at you and think your partner, the person you're matched to, will say, "Oh, it's a nice person." No, go wearing some smelly things. Maybe some torn clothes. Don't make yourself pretty and go and see them. And then you can see whether that person will look at me and maybe look at me as a beggar, and then may look at your external form, but needs to be able to look beyond that to what's inside. And inside, if you're a rich person, that's what's important. In the world today, everybody looks at just the external form and doesn't look into the internal content. I had that thought when I was matched. Oh, will I be looking at, what kind of family they come from, whether they have a good education, what kind of, material? No, I thought that's not important. Who is the person that loves God the most? Whose Shimjong is connected with God the most? I want to find someone who has that kind of Shimjong. That's what I thought. I didn't care about their education level or those sorts of external things. The world problem today is that people, human beings, we are the issue. Eternal life. Even before we're born, the eternal world exists. So with that kind of attitude, okay, so we'll wrap this session up here.